Algebra 1, Study Guide number 7, page 1. Number 1 from Lesson 38 says factor out the GCF. Well, we can do it with factor trees, but the easiest is going to be to, and really where we need to be at this point in Algebra 1, is to look at what they have alike and factor it out, which tells us we're trying to make multiplication. And you'll always have something left. So if we've got 3 things to start with, we'll have 3 things left over. So I'm going to put blanks. And because I'm not doing it with factor trees, I'm going to start with the number, and I'm going to say, what is the biggest number that will go into 8 and 20 and 12? Well, that number would be 4. So if I take a 4 away from each one of those factor trees, then what would be left in this factor tree of just numbers would be a 2, because 4 times 2 is 8. And again, 4 times what is 20, so that would be a 5, and 4 times what is 12, which would be a 3. So if we'd done the factor tree, we would have taken out 2 2's, which was 4. Now look at your m's. This one has 2 m's, this one has 3 m's, and this one has 4 m's. And if you look at what they have alike, they have 2 alike. So let's take 2 m's away, which would leave us no m's here, would leave us 1 m here, and 2 m's here. And then when we look at the ends, I have 3 here, 4 here, and 2 here. So the most they have alike is 2. So we'll take 2 away, which leaves us 1 here, 2 here, and none here. And there I've factored out the GCF. This is what's left over, and if I distribute backwards, it will give me each one of these terms. Number 2, lesson 44, find the slope of the line that passes through these 2 points. Well, the formula for slope, remember the variable for slope is m, and I'm going to use that to help us remember. And it's subtract the y's on top, and I'm going to label it y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. And that's important just because wherever we start, doesn't matter which one of these you start with, but whichever one you start with is the one you have to start with on the top and bottom. So I'm going to start with the 5. So I'm going to underline it. So those are my y's. This is x and y. And x and y, and you can start with a 5 or negative 7. So I'm going to say 5 minus the negative 7. I subtract my y's on top, and then if I started with the 5, I've got to start with the negative 1 on the bottom minus my 2. Well, 5 minus negative 7 is 5 plus 7, which is 12. And negative 1 minus 2 is negative 3. And you can reduce that because 12 is divisible by 3, and positive divided by negative is negative, and 12 divisible by 3 is 4. Now you can put that over 1 if you want to, especially if you're going to graph it, but you can just leave it like this if we're just stating the slope. This one says simplify. Well, anytime you have parentheses and something being multiplied, you're going to actually distribute it. And then to simplify it, we'll get rid of anything that they may have alike. So if I distribute on top, I've got a squared times a squared, which is a to the 4th, over c to the 1 times c to the 2, which is 3c's multiplied together, plus a squared times 3c cubed is going to be 3a squared c cubed, and I'm going to put them in alphabetical order, over, it just makes it a little bit easier to cancel, and then c times a cubed would be a cubed c. And then minus, let me section that off. Now that's 2a over 1, so I'll have a squared times 2a, which is 2a cubed, over c times 1, which is c. Well, if you look at your fractions, these have nothing alike, they'll cancel. And these I can cancel some a's and c's. So let's go ahead and bring this one over. Now I've got 3 over 1, nothing cancels there. I have 2 a's on top and 3 on the bottom, so if I cancel, I have 1 a left on the bottom. I have 3 c's on top, 1 on the bottom. If I cancel, I have 2 c's left on top. And then this one has no numbers or variables that will cancel. So we've got minus 2a cubed over c. To simplify with negative exponents, there's several different ways, but to me the easiest is to get rid of your negative exponents. And negative exponents just mean, to simplify them, you have to take the reciprocal of it. You can move it to the top or bottom. So notice the 5 has an understood 1, so that's a positive exponent. We're going to leave him on top. We have x to the negative 2, and I am going to go ahead and put my 15 down. It's going to stay there. Most of the time in Algebra 1, the numbers are going to stay where they are. And then x to the negative 2 is going to go to the bottom. I'm going to go across the top. Y cubed is going to stay on top. And z to the negative 1 is going to go to the bottom. And also sometimes I say circle your negative exponents. Those are the only ones that are going to move. 15 stayed on the bottom. X to the negative 4 is going to go to the top. And y to the negative 2 is going to go to the top. Now let's see what will cancel. 5 and 15, you can divide by 5 and you'll get 1/3. You have, let's do them in alphabetical order. So I have 4 x's on top and 2 on the bottom. When I cancel, I'll have 2 left on top. I have, these are y's. So make sure those are y cubed, yes. So sometimes it's hard to read your variables. So I got y cubed and y squared on top, which means I have 5 y's on top. I have and we got rid of our x's, and we have a z on the bottom. Now you can leave the 1 there, or you can just write it x squared y to the 5th, that's just an understood 1 coefficient, over 3z. To simplify this, we need to put our like terms together, and really the only thing that's troublesome with this is the alphabetical order, because if we put them in alphabetical order, I think you'll see, and I'm going to write them a little bit bigger. I've got 6m squared n minus 2mn squared minus, now see this one is got the m's and n's turned around, so let's write it 4m squared n plus, and the same thing with this one, 8m n squared. Now let's look for like terms. Same variables, same exponents. So I have 6m squared n minus 4m squared n. So if I put those together, I'll have 2m squared n's left. And I have a negative 2m n squared, and I have a positive 8m n squared. See how they're like terms. Same variables, same exponents, and I'll have a positive 6m n squared. A hiker walks at a constant speed as shown in the table. What is the rate of change? Now, what's interesting in this case is if you look at it, it's going to be a direct variation, because if you're walking and you are not traveling any time at all, the 0.00, no hours, will give you no miles. And when it does that, it makes it a little bit easier to find the rate of change, which is just another name for slope. Well, these are my x's, and these are my y's. So I'm going to subtract the y's on top. So I'm going to use, you can use any two you want to. You can actually even use the 0. So if you want to use the 6 and 0 or the 12 and 6, I'm going to use the 12 and 6. And I'm just going to call it rate equals 12 minus 6 over 4 minus 2, which is 6 over 2, which is 3, and it's very important to get your units here. In this case, it's miles per hour. Now, because 0, 0 is one of the points, you could have actually just put 6 over 2, or 12 over 4, or 18 over 6, or 24 over 8. So if you watch what the information is saying, the rate of change in this case is going to include the 0.00, so you actually could have just, because that's what the same thing is doing, 6 minus 0 over 2 minus 0. So it works just as easy. Very important to put your units. Number 7 is solving a proportion. The easiest way to solve a proportion, especially when you have unknown values, is to cross multiply. So I'm going to put my 5 and my 14 together, and my 7 and my x minus 2. So I'm going to put 5 times 14 equals 7 times x minus 2. Well, 14 times 5 is 70. Equals, and let's distribute, and we get 7x minus 14. Let's add 14 to both sides, and I'm going to come over here and finish it, and I have 84 equals 7x, and I'm going to actually leave it in that order. To get rid of the 7, we're going to divide both sides by 7, and I will use the symmetric property there and turn it around. And 7 goes into 84. Let me slide it over just a little bit. 1 time, and 2 times, so x is 12.